The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're thrilled to be here with you on this Wednesday morning live. We have been not live for about a week and a half now, but this is live. We're coming to you live. And you can see over my shoulder in just a second, we're going to be joined by Evelyn Kung. And we're so thrilled to have her to answer your questions. So we're asking all of you, we have a bunch of questions already, but please feel free to write in your questions. Traven is already showing you some of the different ways that you can connect with us. I want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. If you go there, that's one way to put a question in, because there's a chat at the very bottom of the page. You can watch the show there and you can watch other shows as well, because we have lots of shows that we've recorded over the last 8 years. Now, but you can watch us live in several other places, and Traven is letting you see those, including YouTube and Facebook, and you can write in your questions on there as well. It's all free. Obviously, when you write in on our chat, it's completely anonymous. On Facebook, other people can see your comment. You can always email me, though, and Traven is showing you my email address right there. If there is ever anything that you have that is very sensitive and that you want to make sure that nobody knows who you are, we keep that very, very secret. For those of you, excuse me, listening on iTunes, my email address is S as in Sam, Penrod, P as in Peter, E as in egg, N as in Nancy, R as in robot, O as in Oscar, D as in dog, at autism, which I'm pretty sure you already know how to spell, hyphen, which is the dash, the line in the middle, live, L as in lollipop, I as in igloo, V as in Victor, E as in elephant.com. s.penrod@autism-live.com, and feel free to email me at any point, because we love to hear from you guys. The whole show is meant to be interactive and we love having a conversation with you. So without further ado, I was going to go to a break, but maybe we won't go to a break. Are you okay with not going to a break? I have her sneakily here. Evelyn Kung is sitting next to me. And Evelyn, tell us what, because you've been at CARD for how many years?
You always ask me this.
I know.
And I say it's more than 25, but I don't know how many more.
That's fine. More than 25 plus.
It's half my life.
That's half your, oh my goodness. That's sort of amazing. And what is your role for people who haven't watched the show before?
So I'm the clinical director at CARD. I always say that there was up to a certain point, I probably did everything here. I was here before there was any offices.
Yeah.
So I came in just as a BT, a technician, a therapist, and worked with kids one-to-one. And then I did lots of supervision. This was before there was any funding.
Wow.
So the supervision happened we'd fly to places, and families would hire people, and we'd train them, and we'd put a whole program together. And then locally, we had kids in our local clinic. And I did this around the world, everywhere. And now I'm the clinical director, so I help supervisors when they help them problem solve. So when they have either trouble, or maybe they have a kid who they think is on the recovery track, then I jump in to make sure like everything's going well, to keep things going. And then when supervisors do come across something that they've never seen before, then I jump in to help them just because 25 years gives a lot of different exposure.
Well, I was going to say, it's experience, and being able to ask somebody with that much experience is a really, really beneficial thing. It's great for everybody. Now, you brought up a word, and I was going to bring up also the word, because I was going to mention, for those of you who have not seen the DVD Recovered, there is a DVD, and I believe it's available to you on Amazon, but if you are close to a card office, a lot of times they'll let you check it out if you're a card client out of their office. It's a 2 DVD set usually, because there's one that gives you a little bit of background, but there is a documentary that's about 57 minutes long that follows 4 children at card from the time there's video of them when they were like 3, 4, and 5 getting therapy, and then you get to drop in on them as teenagers 10 years later, which is kind of amazing. I don't think there's anything else that's quite like that out there. And these are 4 kids that are deemed to be recovered, and I'm using the quotation marks because I think it means different things to different people. And I always like to be really careful when we use the term, because I know some people are offended by the term.
It's true.
It's not meant to offend anyone, but CARD uses the term recovered because there is no other word, although medical is now using, it's another R word, why can't I think what it is? Remission, that's the word.
Oh, they use remission. Because for a while they were using remediation.
Now they're using remission. I've had kids that their parents have told me that they have had their thing, there's a code for it in insurance, that autism in remission.
Awesome.
Which I also find a little offensive, right? It's like, let's talk about all the offensive R words, right? That we want to, what is it with the R words? But so when CARD is talking about recovered, maybe you should talk about what that means at CARD so that people understand, because you have to have a name for when kids do so well
that they become fully independent. They need no assistance at school. They have a social group. It could be one peer, but they're able to be social and interactive and very functional to get all their needs met without any assistance. And we also do standardized testing just to show the outside world, hey, this child that came in with a really low IQ, no speech, with no ability to interact or socialize with other people, now is scoring in the average range on diagnostic tests out there, in the range of cognitive ability. So their IQ actually is usually much higher than the average person. Speech is in the normal range, average range, and they're social. They can get along in school, and they have people to hang out with, and they have a social life of whatever form.
And they don't need any extra support. And I just need for people to understand that can happen, that does happen.
It does happen.
And, I've seen it, and you've seen it a bunch.
My kids are 30 now.
Right.
They're almost 30.
So, but a couple of things that I want people to realize. It doesn't mean that the person brain works differently than it did when they had autism. So we're not saying that. It's just that there is this thing called the autism spectrum disorder. And if you were able to segment off the disorder part of it, brain still functions in a different and unique and really kind of beautiful way without the disorder part of it. That's really what we're talking about. I know people who are on the spectrum sometimes say, autism isn't something you get over. And no one is saying that, but there's a disorder part of it that can
what I really
overcome.
stress is it's the functional and independent.
Yeah.
They can have the ability to make all their own decisions, and just like the average person out there. And being able to live their own life and, choose when they're going to do whatever, instead of just not knowing about those things that exist. And I think, I look at all the kids out there, and now, I have adults out there who were all little when I was working with them, and they're fully functioning. They contribute to society.
Yeah.
Taxpayers. I think they're taxpayers. They're amazing people, actually.
Yeah.
I look at them and I just think, you guys are so smart. I don't know
Yes.
what to do.
And I know that the question we always get from people is, well, where are all these people, and why aren't they speaking out, and why, and my answer always is, where they are, they're out living their lives, and they don't want to be known as blank with autism, or blank who went through this, or blank who whatever. So
It's just like when you go into remission from cancer, people get tired of talking about cancer.
Yeah.
And some of our kids, they go in and out. There's times in their lives when they're happy to talk about it, and other times of their life, they're just like, you know what, we're kind of over this.
Yeah.
And I actually love it when some of the kids I talk to, because so many of them now I'm just starting to interact with on a one-to-one. Usually in the past, it's always been with their family present.
Right.
And so now knowing them as adults, and they are so typical in the way that, like, if I say something their parent says, they just, like, politely, I can see the look on their face. It's very flashes about, like, I really don't want to talk about this.
Right. Which is appropriate.
Yeah, they want to talk about what they're into now, what their life is like, their interests. They all have interesting professions,
Yeah.
and hobbies, and they're so much, more interested in, like, asking me, like, they came to LA and they were like, okay, in California, where can I go have a good hike?
Right.
I'm like, okay.
Honestly, if there was going to be one thing that I could say, everyone that I have met that is in that category, if there was one thing that I would identify them, they're people who are all very passionate about at least one thing. Not to the point of perseveration, but really, like, passionate at their top of the game at something that is very interesting to them.
Yeah, I mean, I always say their brain, the ability to focus, and at a certain part of their life, it was dysfunctional. And that's where they had the disorder.
Yeah.
But they learned to control when and how, and the importance of what matters. And that amount of focus that they have, I actually am envious.
No
half the
kidding.
time.
Me
I'm
too.
so envious.
Me too. But also that passion piece, somebody was asking me what I thought made a good therapist. And I said, well, there's a whole bunch of things that go into a good therapist. But if they're passionate about something, that gets me excited, because passion about something can transfer over to being passionate about helping a kid to learn, right?
Yeah.
And as I was saying, I was thinking, that's one of the things in my life when I'm looking for, like, people that I want to spend time with and people that I want to hang out with, as long as they're passionate about something. They don't have to be passionate about everything, but there are people in this life and in this planet who are Eeyores, who are like, and those people have a place here too, right? But I particularly love being around people who are passionate about something. If you can't get excited about one thing enough to argue with me, then I'm short on topics, right? I get excited about stuff. So anyway, so that's when we use the word recovery. That's what we're talking about. Not that the person changes who they are, but that hurdles get taken out of their way.
And it really just becomes a part of their personality. It's the shaping of their personality.
And to me, that is exciting. And as I've said, I have seen it. I remember the first time that my husband saw it, I thought he was going to pass out because he was standing and talking with somebody for a really long time. I've told the story before on the show, but he was talking with somebody that I had told him about. And I was like, you got to meet this guy. And, he's recovered and da-da-da-da-da. And it's so exciting and da-da-da-da. And then he came and we were at an event and he was talking to a group of people that this person was in. And then he got into a side conversation about a Springsteen album. Okay? And they were standing and talking about this one Springsteen album, and then later on, I walked him away, and I was like, "Wasn't that awesome? Didn't you like?" And he was like, "Yeah, what are we talking about? It's all been awesome. What are we talking about?" And I was like, "You were talking to, so and so," and I said, "He's the one that I've been telling you about." He said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "No, the one that I told you that recovered. You were talking with him. When? When was I talking with him? I talked with a bunch of people. What are you talking? Who?" And I said, "The person that you were having this conversation." "No, are you kidding me? Are you serious? That young man once had a diagnosis of autism, like our son?" "Yes." And he was like, I got to sit down. Are you kidding me?"
That's so amazing.
It was such a big deal. So I know that there are people who are out there who will say that doesn't exist. And I'm here to remind you on a daily basis that it does. It doesn't happen for everybody.
No, it doesn't.
That is the bummer.
No, that is the bummer. And I always tell people, One of the reasons people say, why should we do ABA? And I always say, you know what? ABA is the only scientific research backed to show that they can come out of it or go on to live functional lives.
Yes.
But I also say it gives them the opportunity to choose to.
Yes.
You know, but not every kid, when they come in, we don't know where our kid's going to go and how fast they're going to learn. But the thing is, we're giving them the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And that's what matters.
And the truth is that ABA, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert, not me, but ABA helps everyone to make progress. It's just a matter of how much progress is very individual.
Definitely.
But if you, as a parent, know you want your child to make progress, and you want to give them the best possible outcome, then there are certain things that we know that you do. You do ABA, you give them the prescription that is prescribed for them, which for every kid it's a different amount of hours,
Yes.
but for some little kids it's 40 hours.
Yeah.
And we all have that human response. I went, 40 hours? He's not even 3. That's crazy, right? But crazy good.
It's
if you can
crazy
get it.
good, and a typical kid is learning every waking moment.
That's right.
And the 40 hours is just trying to replicate some of that time, because a child is awake more than 40 hours a week.
Well,
So
there we go. So it's worthwhile. Okay, I'm going to jump into a question here. For the last 2 summers, I've been taking my son off the GFCF diet to see if his body will do okay now that he's older. He's been on since he was 4 and turns 11 next month. What are some things I need to track with him? That's a great question, right?
yeah, it's a really good question.
So what do you think?
I mean, there's a couple of different levels. There are any changes in behavior, and it can be the absence or presence of behavior.
Ah,
So I've had families who they do the GFCF diet very specifically when the kids are waiting for their gut to heal and everything. And then when you're taking them off, I wouldn't say take him off of everything all at once. I'd say one thing at a time.
okay.
So, and waiting a few weeks to see, can you see a difference? If you know what went away when he was on it and previously from when you into a regular diet into a GFC diet, I'd say definitely track all of those markers.
Yes.
Those things tend to be things like eye contact. Sometimes it's like amount of speech or just fluency of speech. Fluency meaning how easy it is for the child to be able to talk. There's behaviors, stereotypical and functional, either one. Sometimes we would laugh because a kid would just walk in the room and he'd do this little dance jump, and I'd be like, oh, he's gotten exposed to something. I don't know what it was, but that little jump isn't there when he's on the diet.
Yes.
And then usually for some of the kids, it's little bumps on their cheeks or their ears get really inflamed red, very red. There's a lot of stereotypy that maybe was away but comes back. And you might not even notice it at the beginning because it might just come back slowly. And the thing with stereotypy is, in many ways, it's typical at a low level. It's only when it hits a high level that it becomes stereotypical.
Right, because we all do certain things. We all have, there's the pen clicker person, but all of a sudden then it's like, hey, when you start noticing it, it's like, why are you doing that so much? Yeah.
Or they stop playing appropriately, either with people or stop interacting. Choosing to stay in a more very structured environment.
Yes.
When in the past they were okay just moving around and not having to be so structured. There's just, so it can be the presence or absence.
Okay.
And I would say, I tell families, don't just inundate them and come off the diet completely. Do it one at a time. And then you'll be able to see which one really matters, or maybe the amount that matters.
My son's been on the GFCF diet since he was 2.5 when he was diagnosed. And we've had a couple of infractions, not me, which actually ended up being good because when we noticed that they were infractions and we realized, okay, staying on longer.
Yeah.
I love that you're waiting till the summer because for me, it's always, a couple of times now we've done challenges. Where you deliberately feed the person whatever it is that you've been not doing to see if there's an issue. So now that he's older, we've done that with both gluten and with dairy. And we did that over the winter holiday with dairy. And my son was so excited. He was like, I want cheese, and more cheese. I want to know what cheese tastes like. I want to have, this. I want to have a little bit of ice cream. I want to, do all this. And so we bought a bunch of sample sizes of things just so it wouldn't be wasting. And he was so excited. And he had Havarti cheese, and bless his little heart, he was just like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And the next day, and I thought, oh, well, forget it. It doesn't matter. If he has symptoms, he's not going to want. Next day he came to me and he's like, my stomach hurts so bad. He said, I've been doubled over. It's just terrible. This isn't worth it.
Well, and that's the thing is, if you're going to do challenges, if your child has the ability to tell you when there's a difference.
Right.
And so many of our kids don't really comment on their physical state.
Yes.
They don't know when they're in pain. They don't know when they're cold,
Yeah.
hot, and so it's important that they learn
Yes.
how to do that, how to identify what pain means.
Yes.
Because so many of our kids initially, when they come in, the parents usually describe them as having high pain tolerance.
Yeah.
When it's not necessarily true, they just don't know how to tell you what pain is. And
yeah, but any rocking or pushing stomach up against anything.
And then sometimes you just see the physical response. You see the bloated tummy, and you know that they don't feel good.
Oh, it's just sad, right? Mm-hmm. But what was great about it was he was like, no, I choose.
He knew exactly.
I choose. And I've seen some kids when they do a challenge be that way and go, whether it's artificial colors. I've seen a lot of kids who are like, no, I can't have that. If I have that color, I don't like the way I feel. Mm-hmm. Which is a pretty amazing thing when it gets to be that point.
That is.
So hopefully, you'll be what always scares me is that people in general tend to discredit the whole gut-brain connection, which I don't understand. Like, that makes no sense to me whatsoever, because I know that what I eat totally affects how I think. Mm-hmm. And anybody who disbelieves that, please go have a glass of beer.
Or anybody that has had allergies.
Oh, my goodness, right? What you put into your body through your mouth can have a substantial effect on how your brain feels. Or even
if you have environmental allergies. You breathe in, for me, it's if somebody's mowing the lawn, I actually start holding my breath.
Right.
Because I know I'm going to start getting itchy eyes, and my head starts getting really
And then your
full.
ability to concentrate is going to be hampered.
Yeah, and I'm just focusing on feeling better. I'm not looking at anything around me.
Right.
I'm not learning or talking. I'm just trying to make myself feel better.
Exactly. And I'm the gal with a wheat allergy. Long before I had my son, I had a wheat allergy. And you give me wheat, and we can all tell, because my face gets red and I get mad. Oh. I get like bumps underneath the skin that eventually will be hives. But it literally, they talk about having your hackles raised. And I never knew what that meant, but that's what it feels like. It feels like everything is bumpy, and I'm really fatutzed about everything, to the point where I like have to be by myself. I cannot be around other people. So if I were a kid, I'd be tantruming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's always made sense to me. But just what makes me sad sometimes is a parent who says, well, we went off the GFCF diet and we didn't see any change and everything is fine, but we've had terrible behavior issues and he doesn't comply anymore and he doesn't do this and he doesn't. And I'm always like, but wait a second, you just said you had nothing.
Well,
after. They don't connect the two.
The behavioral. I mean, we even have kids who they have the environmental allergies. And here in Southern California, we have the Santa Ana winds.
Yes.
And when the winds blow, we always say, oh, what are the kids going to do today?
Yes.
And the thing is, you don't see it facially. You don't even see the runny nose and the eyes. You see all the stereotypy rise.
Right.
Suddenly, they're all jumping and hand flapping. And we had a parent who used to come in, and the kid's fine and great now, but he would come in, and he hadn't stimmed in so long. And we didn't notice, and one day he came in, and we were like, what is going on with you? You haven't hand flapped or done any of these things in so long. This Mom, what happened today? What did you do something different? She goes, oh, I forgot to give him his Claritin. Right. Came in, brought it in, gave it to him, 2 hours, all the stimming was gone.
Because he was having to deal with his body fighting off all those other things.
And the thing is, it came out in a behavioral way.
Right.
It didn't come out in the physical watery eyes, runny nose.
Right.
It came out in hand flapping and jumping up and down and all these things. And then after that, we started to realize whenever it would come, she'd be like, oh, because she was trying to teach him to be independent in taking it.
Yes, of course.
And in that process, some days get missed. And everybody always knew. And we're like, oh, he went to school like this today? Oh,
yeah.
You should probably talk to the teacher.
Absolutely, absolutely. So. All right, we've got a couple of comments that came in, and we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back to discuss those and more questions that we had in the night. So stick with us.
today I have a special guest with me. What the heck? She's missing!
Here I am!
And what's your name?
Mackenzie,
And what are we doing today?
making sidewalk paint.
And how do we do that?
I have no idea.
So, the materials we'll be needing
Are 2 cups of cornstarch, 1 cup of cold water, 4.5 cups of boiling water. Be careful. A mixing bowl, a spoon, sparkle, and food
So, the first step we're gonna do is we're gonna take our 2 cups of cornstarch and put it in the big bowl.
Yes.
Can you do that for me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's alright, I'll help you. Step 2, you're gonna put the cold water into the bowl.
Cold water to the bowl.
Good job. Step 3, we're gonna stir it with a big spoon. Good job. You're gonna keep stirring it until it's all the way mixed together. So the next step is adding the boiling water. That's a little dangerous for her, so I'll be doing it myself, 1 cup at a time, stirring it together. You're gonna keep an eye on me?
Yes.
So once we're done stirring the cornstarch water, we're gonna start making our dyed paint. So
Yeah.
what are we gonna do?
We're gonna put in the dye,
Okay.
and we're gonna put in the sparkles.
All right, let's do it. I'll move this out of the way. All right. It's all you, Mackenzie. So the more food color we use, the brighter it's gonna be.
Ooh.
So let's put the sparkles in.
Now we're gonna put the cornstarch in the jar.
All right, do you wanna stir that up?
It looks pretty. We're gonna make a few more colors, and we're gonna go paint on the side.
See all the colors in the sky tonight.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Love is the truest state of mind. Now can you see me? Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Hi, I decided to start Autism Works Now as a small business because 90% of individuals with autism and related disabilities are not employed after graduating from high school. Our mission at Autism Works Now is to create job opportunities for spectrum youth and kids through awareness and education.
A lot of adults don't really believe kids. They'll think, kids are kids, what are they talking about? But when a child stands up for what they believe in, it's so strong and powerful. I first got involved with autism advocacy 4 years ago when my friend was diagnosed. When I found out about my friend's diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it meant. But it didn't matter to me or change our friendship. I didn't look at her any differently. We still had so much fun together. Now I know that she experiences life a little differently than me, and that's okay. Knowing what she goes through has helped me to understand and be more caring towards other people in similar situations. I got involved with ACT Today because I wanted to do whatever I could to help. They provide options like behavioral therapy, medical care, social skills programs, assistance to military families, and much more. Being there for my friend was my #1 priority. I've been volunteering and spreading the word about the cause via my social media platform because raising awareness is a crucial first step. There needs to be more kids and teens involved to make sure that our voices are heard just as loudly as the adults. You may be small like me, but your acts of kindness are not.
Welcome back. We just were looking at some of the comments that you guys sent in. I'm going to start with the one that came in the most recently on YouTube. Hello, Ms. Shannon and Ms. Evelyn.
Hello.
My son is high-functioning kid. What are the prerequisite skills needed to teach stranger safety? And thanks. Have a good day. Thank you, Pearl. What do you want to say about that?
I love teaching stranger safety.
And that's just weird. Can I just comment that that's just a weird thing that you would love to do that? Although I can appreciate that once you teach it to kids, you know that they are safer, and that's a very good thing.
I think I have it in my brain. I had my first kid, recovery, she was 4, and we were going to teach her, and she's the one that she's cute as a button, big bows in her hair, and she'd just run up to any stranger and try to sit in their lap.
Yeah.
So we had to really stop a lot of things, and you know, we gave her some, depending on what level of understanding, you know, the kid has. If the child has cognitively able to understand, if you know the name of the person, initially when they're younger, if you know their name and they're like mommy's friend or the teacher's friend or something, you can say yes. But if you don't know their name or if you've seen them, you should ask somebody. So you can ask rules like, can I go to that person, or can I ask, you know, whatever it may be. But there are a lot of kids here who will run into a stranger's lap and there's no vocalization. They can't talk. They don't understand receptive language, especially at the beginning. And so for those kids, I mean, there's different topics that we've had, but what a lot of times we do is, because we're at a clinic, we can actually get other people involved.
Right.
So we know who the kid knows and who the kid doesn't know.
Yeah.
So then you can label somebody as stranger or not stranger, but if you don't have the vocal ability and you don't have the receptive knowledge of that, then what we will tend to do is we'll plant people in the community, and if the kid runs up to them, we actually do just tell the kid no.
Right.
You know, and we give a whole pattern of response to the parent and how to bring them back, and like you don't get there. And if they go but come back, you give a high reinforcer.
There you go.
You know, and just planting reinforcers and planting people in the environment who you know, initially it's just the stranger, and then it's like the stranger carrying the candy or the object that you know the kid loves, you know, whatever it may be. And just think there's going to be tangible objects that somebody's holding that the kids are just really interested in. And just slowly adding one variable at a time, and teaching the stranger to basically tell the kid, no, you don't come here. And by that ability, we don't usually work on stranger awareness if we don't have compliance from the child. And compliance is, if I always say, you know, you have compliance when the kid takes off and you just say no and they stop. You know, and people used to laugh in schools. Our kid would go running in school, and all I'd say no, and the kid would look like they had a cane that stopped them. Right. And they would immediately just stop, and you know, and they knew they had to come back. And if they're able to follow all those compliance rules, if you say no, if you say come here, if they can follow basic instructions, then that is a time to be able to teach stranger awareness. If you don't have good compliance, where if a kid takes off and they will not listen to you when you say no, you can't go to the point of teaching stranger awareness.
You got to get that in place first.
You have to get compliance in place, and just that kid needs to understand that if you say no or stop, they do stop, and they do understand what no means, and they're able to come back. And it's for those really challenged kids that don't talk and don't have one-word instructions. You know, being able to follow you know, one-step instructions. But I'd have to say that so many of our kids here, they can do at least the compliance aspect, because that's the first thing we work on in ABA is we do compliance before we do anything else, because if the kid's not listening to you just to stay near you, it's really hard to teach.
Absolutely. It's one of the first pieces. And we haven't brought up skills, but in the skills curriculum, there are so many lessons that add up to safety and stranger safety. it's sort of different for each kid. But I'll be honest, you know what I wish we had? You know how, like anybody who's into oils now, the essential oils, and they have all these recipes on Pinterest. If you have a headache, it's these, you know, a drop of this oil and a drop of this oil, and then, you know, roll it on your wrist and it'll get rid of your headache. Whether that works or not, I don't know. But I like the little recipes. I wish that Skills had recipes. That if, you know, you want to teach stranger danger, well, first you have to have, and they will tell you if you go into the lesson what the prerequisite is. But to know all the lessons from all the curricula that you need to do to get to stranger safety, because I remember the period of time that they were teaching my son, first I had to go around and take pictures of people. They asked me for a list of the 5 stores that we went to the most, you know, so I'm like Trader Joe's, Target, you know, the grocery store, all these different places, and I had to go and take pictures of employees, and I had to tell them at the front desk that I was going to do that, and then they worked on that. They were like, you know, where is this worker from? Oh, that's Trader Joe's. How do you know it's a worker? What are they wearing? Oh, they have a name badge. They're wearing the Hawaiian shirt, and they've got, you know, this kind of pants on. Oh, and at Target, I never noticed this before, but at Target, everybody has a red shirt with khakis on and a name badge. And, you know, so we went through all these different places with him and talked about who's a worker, right? And at the same time, they were identifying other people in the community, like a police officer and firemen and all of those people. And I was like, why did they need to know what the uniform of a Trader Joe's was? I was always like 7 steps behind an ABA going, why are we doing that? And then when it would come together, I'd go, oh, that's why we did that. Because later on, when they were teaching him safety, and if he got lost in a store, who do you go to? You find a worker. How do you know what they look like? And he already knew. Yeah. And it was like, oh, that's why he needed to know that at Trader Joe's they wear the floral shirts. And then we expanded it to bigger things, and then of course we had drills that we did. My husband and I just were talking about this the other day, that we had to go to Target, go up to the counter and say, we're going to do a lost child drill. This is the therapist, I'm the mom, this is the child. And then, so the therapist was with my child, and I had to walk away. Yeah. And then he had to identify to the therapist, and they had practiced it beforehand. But he had to say to the therapist, I don't know where mommy is, and then to look for her, and then go to the front desk. And I was hiding behind the shopping carts, and everybody at Target was so interested to see, and he pranced right up to the counter and he said, my mom is lost, right? My mom can't find me. She's the one who's lost. And then they paged me and I came up. But then we had to do the big one where, and I couldn't do it because I was going to have heart palpitations, where they had 3 people in the store that were plants, and 1 who was going to be the person who was going to go up to him, who was an unknown person. And my husband had to sneakily walk away, and my son didn't know this was going to happen on this day. But we'd rehearsed a bunch of different things. So there were 3 people to watch to make sure that nobody else could, you know, take my child away. And I was doing a live radio show while this was happening and waiting for text that he was okay. But the person who was the stranger walked up, and they'd identified a thing that, you know, Jem always wanted to help. And if there was a sick puppy, and the guy was like, can you help me? I have a sick puppy. I need some help right now. And Jem was like, you're a stranger. I need help. You're a stranger. And then he ran to a worker, and we were able to document, and he, you know, did it exactly right. But that took us probably a year and a half.
It takes so long to do. Yeah. And parents want to work it initially, and we're working on compliance, and we're like, you know, identifying people. There's all these, and it just depends on the level of the child you have. Of course. You know, and then
and where you live, and where you go.
And where you go, and just, you know, I was trying to explain to an insurance payer why I was like, this child's elopement wasn't the same as another child's elopement, because the kid that runs off and then versus the kid that just kind of wanders off, it's a very different interaction. They can both be seen as being dangerous. Yes. But they're different. You know, the kid who takes off, you do sometimes have to teach certain things initially, and then maybe you won't go back to it for a year, and then go back and teach the next step to it. But it does take a while, and I mean, it's really useful to find people who will help you to be the stranger.
Absolutely. And but my beginning point was that there are all these lessons and skills
Yeah.
that can equal up to it. But there isn't a perfect recipe like I want, because as you said, every child, it's different. Why, what safety they need and in what circumstances they need it in. But the lessons are all there.
Yeah, and I mean, autism is a spectrum.
Yes.
You know, and all the kids have different skills, and there might be similar interests or similar strengths and weaknesses. But, you know, that's a lot of parents have said, just tell us exactly what to do. And we're like, we actually can't tell you exactly what to do. We need to see the kid, how he responds, what they're learning to. The prescription is different, and we don't want, because time is a factor, we don't want you teaching things that you didn't have to teach.
Right. Absolutely. So there you have it. But if you're interested in looking at the lessons and skills, you can go to skillsforautism.com and check it out. There is a 14-day free trial, and you can just shop around in there and look at lessons. The one thing I will tell you is that when you fill out the beginning information about your child, they will ask your child's age. I don't know why, as autism parents, we all want to put like something fake in there so that our child can't be identified. That's the one thing don't do, or say that it's 2 days before, 2 days after, whatever, but make sure that they're the same age, because the lessons go by age. And it's very hard to change it later on.
Yeah, and because if you have skills already, because it's based on age, if you have to go back and change the birthday, a lot of times we have to wipe out your assessment and start over. And
I can't even tell you how often parents, I did it the first time. I was like, oh, I'm just going to say that he's 18. And then it didn't give me a bunch of lessons that I wanted. And I was like, why isn't this there? Well, because that's not appropriate for an 18-year-old. Anyway, don't do it. Put the right age in. Change the, I don't know, whatever you want to do, but don't mess up the age, because you'll be sorry. I've been there, done that. Okay, next question. This came in from Facebook, and Syed says, as a new immigrant family with autistic 6-year-old son coming to the States, what are the steps that will be taken when he goes to school to pass this important stage? And do you recommend any reports about his case we should bring with us? 6 years old, coming from outside the country, wanting to know, because, they're going to have to do an IEP when they get here. There's a lot that's going to happen.
Yeah, there's so much that happens, and depending on what state you go to.
Yes.
Because every school system in every state, and even within every state, the schools vary significantly in terms of what they're going to require of you. And what I would say is bring all your reports. If your child has a diagnosis of autism, but the first one was at 2 years old and he's 6 now, usually they do want more recent, within the 1 or 2 year period.
Okay.
If you're going to be getting insurance, you definitely need something that's more current. Okay. But the school system wants something usually within 1 or 2 years saying that he has a specific diagnosis. Any kind of testing that you've had, if you've had, full neuropsych testing in terms of, probably not speech, because if there's another language involved, it would have to be in English. Also looking at, but any testing, standardized testing, any diagnosis, anything in the last year or two is probably going to be the most helpful to you. And then when you come here, you're going to go to your school district and you're going to basically have to ask them what they're requiring. Because even though we have a federal law that guarantees education, free and appropriate education, the districts do vary significantly in what they're in what they ask for, in the documents they require. I feel like I'm not being helpful.
No, I think you're being very helpful. It's just that I think we're all feeling the overwhelm that this person is going to feel. Mm-hmm. But absolutely, you want to bring as much documentation as you can that's as recent as possible.
Yes.
Anything that you have at your disposal. My follow-up question is, if they haven't gotten a recent diagnosis, let's say that they were diagnosed at 2 and he's 6 and they haven't gotten a recent, should they get another diagnosis where they are, or should they come here and get the diagnosis here first? What do you think about that?
I don't know. It just depends what country you're coming from.
Okay.
I think a lot of that, will it be in English? I mean,
yeah.
That's going to be a factor regardless.
Yeah.
If it's not in English but you got it, they're going to ask for one in English once you get here.
And anything that, I'm just going to say from the school end of it, anything that you have, any records that you have on the child that will show what an appropriate setting might be, because the first thing that you're going to need to do is qualify for services, which is if you have a diagnosis of autism, they should agree with that and give you the right to an IEP, which is what you want, an individualized education plan. And probably, though, what they will want to do is observe the child. So they'll probably stick your child in school in a setting that they hope is appropriate for a period of time, and then they will want to reevaluate and have a meeting. And depending on what behaviors your child has, you know, in some cases you have to lobby for your child to be in a mainstream classroom with an aide. In some circumstances, I know parents that have kids that elope and they feel like the school isn't taking it seriously enough in terms of security and those kinds of issues. So you want to be as clear as you can with the school about what your expectations are in that period of time when they don't know your child as well as they're about to.
Yeah, any safety factors that can be documented for your child need to be told.
Yeah.
So whether it is the running away or the no stranger awareness, it can also be food if there's allergies or sicknesses. I mean, there's a whole wide variety. When my kids were in school, and one of my daughters started kindergarten, there was a girl in the class next door who was from an African country, and they spoke 6 languages.
Wow.
So there was no way to do an assessment on her because she actually went into all the different languages when she spoke.
Wow.
And so they couldn't just assess her. They were like, okay, here's some Spanish, here's some English. But they realized that there was too many other dialects and different things coming in. And they had a really hard time assessing her. They had her in there for like 3 months. And I actually went to the teacher next door and I said, you need to do something, because this is completely the inappropriate setting for her, because she was taking off and she didn't have an aide with her.
Yeah.
And she was very frustrated, you could tell, completely. And really, I was talking to the psychologist at the school and I was like, you need to get her into another environment where she's safe, because she's not safe here. And, they're like, oh, we're just going to see how she does.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not a good
that doesn't
idea.
work. That doesn't work. And yet schools take that tack a lot. So just know what your expectation is and bring whatever paperwork that can document that, and then be very clear with the school so that you make sure that your kiddo is safe. Oy, oy,
And
oy.
if you can, when you get to the school, find other parents who have, in your area, find an autism group.
Yeah.
Because those parents will be able to tell you what you need to do and not do, especially if they're involved in your school.
There's an organization called TACA. It's TACAnow.org. And they have chapters in most states in the United States now that are parents that are very on it and connected. And you can see if there's one in the area that you're moving to see if you can get some support about knowing which school.
Even if you're coming and you're coming, if you go online and try to get connected to parents who live in that area.
Yeah.
Because that'll tell you, should you go to the school or should you go to a different school?
It's like being slightly ahead. Okay, we have another question that came in on Facebook. Hi from Morocco. What are the main criteria to get a right autism diagnosis? There's so many things in there that I want defined, because what's the right autism diagnosis?
Yeah, I have no clue what that means.
And well, maybe, I'm not sure what question you're asking, because I don't know what right autism diagnosis means.
I don't know what that means, because now in the last diagnostic manual it was separated out, but in the current diagnostic manual now it's just autism spectrum disorder. And so a lot of, the names like Asperger's or PDD, like they're all a part of this now. And that might be, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what the question
Can you
is.
write back more? And they also were asking about the Sunrise program. And I don't know if you have anything to say about that. Here's what I have to say about that. Maybe that's better because I know you have professional constraints. But Traven, come back to me for a second here. So thank you. So the Sunrise program has been around for a very long time, and I know a lot of parents that have tried the Sunrise program, and a lot of people who speak very highly of it, and I don't want to speak ill of what other people do, but since you asked, I just want to give you a little bit of, I want to ask you to go and do some research and ask yourself, what do you want for your child? Because what I have heard from Sunrise is that what it helps to do is helps parents to be able to meet their children where they are. That's what I have gotten from the Sunrise program, that they are able to be with their child and to be productive with their child, and it's more about the parent coming to the child. And that's fine. And if that's what you want to accomplish, then it's very expensive and it's very time consuming. But if that's what you want to accomplish, I've heard people say really good things about that. What I have not heard, and what there are no studies that show, is that a Sunrise program can have your child progress in terms of acquiring skills and being able to live independently. I feel like if you want your child to live independently, that every study is there for you to go do ABA. And you have a limited amount of time, and most people have a limited amount of resources. And so my personal thing, having watched and I have one friend in particular who, when ABA was not available to her, went the Sunrise thing, and who regularly calls me and cries and says, I wish that I had had what you had, Shannon. I wish I had had the availability to send my child to ABA. And cries and says, what if we had had that opportunity? So I just want to put that out there to you. You have to make your decisions for yourself and do your research and know what you're doing. But ABA has hundreds of thousands of studies at this point that show how effective it is at building skills. And I think if you do the parent training with the ABA, then you learn how to be able to meet your child where they are and where they're going. So I would just say to you, since you have limited time and probably, if you're like the rest of us, limited resources, and insurance will pay for ABA, insurance will not pay for the Sunrise program, and you have to ask yourself why. So there's that. That's what I want to say about that. Okay, we have another question here. My son has a meltdown when he's watching TV, and all of a sudden it stopped due to a loss of connection, or someone pauses the TV program because he needs to eat. He cries in a very loud way.
So, if I'm correct, he cries when somebody stops the TV?
Yeah, if it's cried or paused,
Okay.
He cries in a very loud way, even if it's to feed him. But.
Yeah, I mean, with this behavior, just like any behavior, from the ABA point of view, is there needs to be an analysis done on this. We call it or a functional behavior assessment or a functional behavior analysis to see what's the function. Yeah. Is the function of the behavior, if he screams loud enough, you turn it back on? Or is the function behavior, if he screams, he doesn't know what to do because he can't tell you? Mm-hmm. So many of the kids' behaviors on the autism spectrum are there because they just can't communicate. They're trying to tell you, they want it back, but there's no way to tell you. But if I scream, it eventually comes back.
Right.
And a lot of times it is the access that happens. And so if he screams and somebody does pretty soon turn it back on, then he just learns that, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do.
This works. So
this is how I communicate. It works, and all I do is have to scream in this certain way, and it comes back. And even for food, sometimes it comes back with food, so it's even better. I get food I scream, and now I get food plus I get access to the television. And so a lot of times, usually that behavior is connected because it's been reinforced in some way. And it might not even be access to it anymore. It might just be a habit now. So many times it might start as, hey, I scream or I do this behavior and I get access. And at a certain point, there's so many kids that just think this is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
If somebody comes to pause or stop it. And then there's so many issues in just that behavior. One is he doesn't know how to communicate to tell you, hey, I want to see that. Or maybe he can't ask you, like, when am I going to see it again? A typical kid, if you actually stop the TV in the middle of a program, would actually fuss, typically. Yeah. But they have they can talk, so they're like, when do I get to see it again? They want to know when they're going to get access again. Yeah. And for our kids, there's no way to ask, so they don't know. They think if it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
And they don't know when it's coming. A lot of kids, as they're growing older, they learn to ask when, why do I have to eat now?
Right.
Let me get to a certain point, and then let's pause and stop it there, and then go eat. They can negotiate all these factors that matter to them.
Yes.
And if your child can't talk and can't tell you and ask you all of this type of information, this is the method of communication that he's chosen.
But the good news in all of this is if you can figure out what the function of the behavior is, we know that the TV is a reinforcer, and that you can teach, this is a way that you'll be able to teach all of these things, like you'll get it again later on a visual schedule, you know, teaching them, can I just have 2 more minutes, right? Teaching, you know, them how to be able to convey, whether it's spoken word or not. All of these things can be taught around the television because the television is so reinforcing.
Yes.
That they're going to want to bargain to be able to get the TV.
Yeah.
So all those things can be taught with your ABA team.
And maybe your child does talk and it's just easier to scream.
Well, honestly, if I could get my way just by screaming every day, I would. I just would. Yeah, wouldn't we all? So honestly, the best thing is to work on this with your ABA team.
Yes.
If you don't have an ABA team, you should see about getting an ABA team because most people, at least in the United States, have insurance now to cover this. But if you absolutely can't because you were someplace so remote or have been told that your insurance won't, please visit Skills, but also IBT, the Institute for Behavioral Training, to learn how to implement all of the lessons that are in Skills. So it's ibehavioraltraining.com. I'm trying to squeeze in one more question. That's why I'm hurrying. Lily wrote in and said, my son is high functioning, 8 years old. Lately, he's rubbing his tongue. When we ask, he said it feels like hairs, and now he's spitting constantly. Why? How to stop? He said, he says that he wishes he could stop.
Oh,
I know.
poor thing.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
That is a bummer. I mean, you'll have to, it seems like he can talk a lot, so it's telling him, like, is it the way it feels? And the question is it the way he feels it from his tongue or through his hands?
Yeah.
You know, it matters.
Yeah, it does
because
matter.
maybe he likes that feeling, and that's what he's going after, and that the function would be the tactile sensory.
Yeah.
So maybe you can find a replacement that has another feeling that he can do it. But maybe it's his tongue. Maybe his tongue actually, it could be a sickness. You know, when your tongue gets really, I don't know. It's when you get sick usually.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's really hard or just scratchy.
Yeah.
It could be something else like that is going on, and he just doesn't have the words to tell you that aspect.
It could also be the nerves reconnecting because that happens sometimes later for our kids, and then their tongues are itchy. And if you're taking methyl B12, it'll do that.
And if you have allergies,
yes.
I eat bananas, my tongue feels really itchy and hairy.
Yes, absolutely. So first step, medical.
Yeah.
Get it checked out medically, right?
Yep.
But then you could work, once you know medically, then an FBA could be done on this, a functional behavior assessment, and an ABA team could help you with this.
Yes, and you can redirect the behavior. And sometimes the behavior starts and it's hard to stop, and maybe what you're learning in ABA is how to stop.
There you go.
You're working on the inhibition.
There you go.
Because some habits are really hard to stop.
That's right. We're out of time, and I wish we could stay and answer more questions, but I really want to thank you for being here and for filling in for us. You're amazing.
Thank you.
So, and you guys, we are back tomorrow with great shows. We've got another expert who's going to be answering more of your questions tomorrow. So feel free, you can keep writing in because I still have to send her questions for tomorrow. And then on Friday, Nancy and I are back, and we've got a great guest, actually 2 great guests. We're having Leah Hirschfeld back on to talk about research, and we're having Chad Hooker from Puzzle Piece, what is it called? Puzzle Piece Athletics, thank you. And he's doing amazing things with kids on the spectrum, helping them to learn how to work out. And I know that's a big thing for you. You love that. So, because it's good for them. It reduces the anxiety. Hello, people. And they can do it. I love to watch Chad's videos. Anyway, we'll talk about all of that on Friday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.